Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the BJJ Science Podcast. My name is John Lee. I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, and I'm here, as always, with...
Dan Sly. Very warm welcome, everyone.
Very warm welcome indeed. So today we've got kind of psychological intervention, haven't we, Dan, that we can do. It's a really good kind of starting point for when you're looking to kind of increase your performance, called a performance profile.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. As you say, it's a beautiful starting point. If there's any other sports psychs or sports psychology enthusiasts listening to this session, they'll know what we're talking about. It's a really nice kind of intervention practice strategy to kickstart things. Really, as we'll talk about today, and you'll see why it's really effective. Because more than anything else, it actually just enhances our self-awareness. I'm going to go on a bit of spiel now, John, about self-awareness. So bear with me, mate. I just when you think in everyday life, just how long or how often do you just take time to just kind of step back and reflect on things? Do you see what I mean? We're so busy with everything in our everyday lives. So we actually just don't even take a moment sometimes, even just to check in with ourselves. Like, how am I feeling currently on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm not asking you to answer that question, John. That'd be strange. But you know what I mean? Those kind of introspective questions.
10.
So it's really, absolutely 11. But yeah, we don't do that enough, man. And it goes with our training as well. Sorry, that's really sweeping generalization. I know a lot of people kind of analyze, record, reflect on their training, which is brilliant. But this is a great way to do it because it doesn't sound particularly sexy and inspiring when I put it this way, much like me in that respect. But what it does actually tell us is actually like self-awareness is probably one of our most powerful weapons in our arsenal. Obviously, when we're more self-aware of what we need to do, what we need to grow, what we need to develop, that lays the foundation for everything. And personal profiling is kind of like the gold standard, I'd say, intervention in which to do that. So that's what we're going to look at in a bit more detail today.
Yeah, I'd say my reflection time is often limited to the drive home from training and maybe then crying in the shower, depending on how the session's gone, really.
Absolutely. And as I weep through the tears, obviously, I find it hard to be objective as well. But that's a really interesting point as well, right? We reflect on that drive home and we might feel a bit pissed off, a bit angry, a bit dejected if we had a roll. Conversely, we might have had a really good session, lure ourselves into that full sense of security. I'm now God amongst men. My guards are unpassable. My submissions are impenetrable. Those kind of things. But so I'd say that's really a lot of the time we were more. There's different ways to define this term. I use the term in this kind of context as reflexive, when emotions are kind of dictating what we're doing, right? Some days we have a roll, don't we, on the mat? Even you as a brown belt, and you probably get to the point sometimes we think, fuck this. Yeah, excuse me, but you're like, Jesus Christ, what was that about? What was happening then?
Often.
I hear even my coaches sometimes say it, like, what, you know, speaking to coaches recently, they kind of talk about having these days sometimes, and that's why sometimes it's great just to take a step back, allow the kind of emotions to dissipate a bit and reflect. But as a starting point, I think this performance profile will be a really great way to maintain that motivation, maintain that focus. There's unsurprisingly a kind of lot of benefits associated with it. First and foremost, highlights our areas for development, of course, which are really important. Actually helps us highlight our strengths as well, because this isn't about an exercise, and as we'll go on to talk about, it's not an exercise necessarily in what we're good or what we're bad at. It's those areas for development, or what's most important to enhance our BJJ game. And to add to that, more specifically, it's what's most important to us individually. It's actually kind of rooted in this idea of what we refer to as kind of personal construct theory. I won't go into too much depth in it, mainly because I won't do it enough justice, and I'll end up sounding stupid. But essentially, this kind of psychologist George Kelly, who kind of thought of this idea, basically said we all have this. Big George, Big George, as he's known in the circles. You know, you obviously know him personally, John.
Yeah? Oh yeah, friends.
Yeah.
We're lot.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure he may have unfortunately passed now. He would certainly be very old, because I think this construct dates back to the kind of 1950s or 60s. But
I meant when he was alive, we were.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very, very close. But yeah, he used this really nice term. He said basically we all have these mental constructs, these ways of trying to kind of understand and make sense of the world around us. And as a kind of extension of it, he's came up with this really nice idea, which me and you will like, John, as scientists. He said we're all actually essentially scientists in the world, trying to figure out how the kind of world works. And if we use that term world and replace it with BJJ as a nice little microcosm of that, so to speak, it is. We're just trying to understand how this whole BJJ thing works. Get beyond the confusion and understand, right, what do we got to do to be our best?
To be our best. Yes, we did this once before. So I'm going to update my performance profile from the last time we did it on the sports science podcast, and you're going to do one as we go along as well, aren't you, Dan? So we'll do it kind of in real time as people can do it along, follow us along, and do theirs as well.
Yeah, we'll work together, John, as a team. as we
that.
always do,
I
and
like
kind of
that.
imagine a
So
hypothetical. Yeah,
is this available for them, Dan? We'll email it to them, or is it
yeah.
available on Fight
We'll
Site
say, John.
still?
Yeah. What we'll do. What we're going to show you for those of you watching via YouTube, you'll see the document I bring up in a minute. This will be free to you. Just drop me an email. I'm more than happy to send it across to you, either via us directly, John, at our, it at bjjsciencepodcast@outlook.com.
It is bjjscience@outlook.com,
Oh.
I think.
Either find us on Insta, my personal Insta at the Fight Psych, and just drop us a DM and happy to give it to you. All I'd ask in exchange, John, is at least give us a little subscribe, a little like.
Yeah,
a little
give us a like.
A little review, preferably positive, but let's not be picky these times. But yeah, so that's essentially what it is, John. So shall I upload the document, and dare I say, shall we begin?
Let's get it up. Let's get going. I'm just going to check what our email address is because I cannot remember.
Oh, goodness me. Okay, man. Right.
You cannot minimise it.
Oh, God. Sorry, as I'm doing this, we're committing the cardinal sin of dead air as I try and
so just loading the document.
Oh, John, you've disabled screen sharing.
How do I enable multiple participants? There you go. That was easy, wasn't it? I just click that one box and then it's
okay. So here we are, John. Look, it's branded and everything. Look at this.
Bow, bow, bow.
Bow, bow, bow. There we are. The performance profile.
Mate,
okay,
that's a thing of beauty. That is a thing of beauty.
Look at that, and this is free to anyone who wants it. Okay, so
I would say for those audio listeners, you don't actually need to be able to see this. We'll explain the process. You can load this up when you get home, and and you'll definitely be able to follow along and do your own performance profile.
Yeah, we should probably put these caveats in. Obviously, people like to listen to podcasts on the moves and everything. That's great. For this particular episode, I'd say it'd be really great if you have the opportunity to have a pen and paper in front of you and kind of do this in real time, pause it. Or if you're aware at this stage, maybe wait till you can get home, download the PDF, and then we can work on it together as a team, as a family.
Hell, listen to it twice. Listen to it now twice. And then go again when you're going through
it. And obviously, if you're operating heavy machinery or driving, I would just recommend really that you try and multitask as best. I joke. Go aside, go safely. If you're working in a warehouse, say, sorry, boss, can't put those avocados away now. I've got a bloody performance profile to write. Do it yourself, that kind of
Sorry,
thing.
Dan, just to interject, we are bjjscience@outlook.com. If you send us an email, we will send you this document.
Excellent stuff. Brilliant. So as a kind of little addition, a little Brucey bonus to begin with. So this first step, right, is identifying the key attributes. Remember, this is rooted in this idea of kind of personal construct theory. So we're saying, what's most important to you? What do you feel is most important to you to be the best BJJ competitor or athlete you can be? Okay, so needless to say, we could ask 100 different BJJ competitors. We'd get 100 different responses, which is great because it has to be personally meaningful to us, like all goals, like all things we want to achieve. If there's no sense of kind of personal connection to it, it's not likely to motivate us, right, or get involved. So to help us with that, there's this additional little question I sometimes like to ask. It's a bit left field, mate, so bear with me. And again, I didn't make up this question, but this idea of a miracle question can sometimes be a nice idea to go for. So I'm going to ask you this, John, and you can share me. Okay, let's imagine, John, tonight a miracle happened. I know you're a strong believer, so let's imagine a miracle happened. Okay.
Yeah.
And then overnight, when you wake up in the morning, you go into training, you go into your next comp, and you realize you're all of a sudden an elite of the elite competitor. You can't actually explain what's happened. You just are now competing at the elite level. I just want you to think about this and think about
a standard morning for me, Dan.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I should have said, For me, I probably should have used myself as a better example. Not for Jesus Christ of BJJ, which is John Lee, but so how would you know, as strange as it sounds, things are different? So firstly, in terms of kind of your mindset, how you carry yourself, how you're actually performing, how would you determine that this miracle has happened? What would you see in your performance till you're elite?
I imagine, and this might be completely wrong, but I imagine I would have much greater self-confidence in my abilities to perform in competition and in training. I imagine my fitness, my sport-specific fitness would be right up there.
Okay. In terms of fitness, if we elaborate a bit more on what you mean by fitness, John, and for the listeners and viewers, maybe.
So for BJJ, I think you need kind of anaerobic or kind of interval fitness. You need to be able to do like a high-paced burst and then, establish a position and recover, and then another burst maybe to advanced position, and then so it's very interval based aerobic fitness kind of thing. And then you'd need strength and muscular endurance, because there's a lot of pushing and pulling, so you'd have that muscular endurance and strength, I would say.
Nice. Okay. What about in terms of maybe some BJJ specific skills? What are we starting to notice?
So is this specific for my game, Dan, or are we talking more
generic?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but if we're trying to keep it personal to you, man, and obviously everyone listening or watching, try and think of the same question, but in relation to your kind of own BJJ journey.
Yeah. So don't take the attributes that we're writing down. Do this part yourself, and kind of make it real
just to generate some ideas.
So for me, I'd say top game, like top control and pressure, guard passing. Are these too broad, too specific? Or
no, absolutely, mate. Remember, it's all what's personally meaningful to you. If you feel it's helping you, and as we go on to talk about this a bit more, we can explain how we can kind of elaborate more. But yeah,
and one that I definitely need to work on, takedowns.
Takedowns, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we just use
sweeps, put sweeps in there, Dan, as well.
Yes, of course, John. Please.
I'm sorry, and in the physical, we cannot ignore mobility.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Flexibility, some would call it, but I think more of a functional ability to maneuver your body, with muscular strength throughout full range, mobility, absolutely. We're going to call it.
Absolutely. I like that, man. Yeah. So that's already, we can probably see like a great range of attributes. We probably maybe have some more on the psychological, which we'll talk about in a moment. I'm obviously biased being a psychologist. Yeah, go on. Give me a couple more.
Sam, I'll give it,
John. Yeah.
I've got like a comfortable in competition, so like a familiarity and a comfort with being in that situation.
Okay,
strange one.
Okay, so I'm going to call that again. These are all going to be terms that are meaningful to you, because that's the most important thing. I'm kind of calling it environmental comfort for now.
Yeah, I like that. Mental toughness.
Okay.
And
Excellent.
I put down previously a will to win, and I meant specifically during competition when it gets tough and you start getting tired, it's very easy to go, oh, well, fuck it, let them pass. Or, or do I really need to win gold? And I remember, I think I said this last time we did it, I'm quite happy in competition, or I was going into competitions quite happy just to medal.
Yeah.
And if I knew that I'd won a medal, I'd then get into the final or get into that fight for bronze or whatever, and when I got tired, would very quickly lose that will to get that extra gear and kind of go for gold. And I think that's linked with the confidence, because I was nervous. Yeah, I'm nervous in competition. You're nervous, you then get tired, and you lose that real will to crush and dominate. So I had that down as will to win, I think.
I like that. I've also put, sorry, not to put words in your mouth, but that's really interesting, because I'm sure a lot of people listening, watching, and definitely myself included, I probably shouldn't admit this as a psychologist, should probably try and work beyond this, but yeah, definitely as well. We call that idea of motivation, and perhaps we go into the comp, obviously we've got that intrinsic motivation, wanting to do well, but we're maybe quite highly extrinsically motivated, coming home with that nice shiny medal.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's a less strong predictor of motivation over time. So as that shows, right, once you know you've medalled, I think we've done comps before, mate, where we've either kind of medalled or won our category in either the gi or no gi. Then doing one in the afternoon, we've both kind of gone, okay, pressure's off. I think we've done grabbed ourselves a massive lunch, relaxed, and then when it's got to the afternoon, you think, I feel absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, okay, definitely.
And so, that will to win, so motivation, we might call that more maybe even intrinsic motivation, which is kind of that internal desire and drive to better ourselves, to keep going, irrespective of kind of rewards we might get as well. So that's
I mean, they say, don't they, like tiredness makes cowards of us all, and I think I've definitely suffered with that in competition when it starts to get really, really hard. That motivation to push that extra gear kind of has failed me. So that's what I need to work on.
Yeah, I think we're doing a session. We'll be doing a podcast in the near future on kind of energy management, which is so important, both obviously physically and psychologically.
Yeah.
Brilliant, lovely little list.
Awesome.
You can see that on the screen, some of the ideas, but if not, so for those of you, as I say, who don't currently have a profile in front of them or just listening to this podcast, I'm going to keep talking about specificity is key here and breaking it down. So for the sake of this, we've broken it down into physical skills, so more general physical attributes of maybe we might say a good athlete or a combat sport athlete or a BJJ sport athlete. Then we've got these sports specific skills. We might, and it's kind of at our discretion how we want to do this. Do we want to talk about different specific types of fitness? So we've kind of put the interval fitness in there, but it might be more base BJJ specific stuff like the top game, the pressure, could be guard passing, could be guard retention, could be submission defense, whatever is personal to you. Don't be worried at first to write a really nice comprehensive list. And obviously the psychological and mental attributes, John's beautifully highlighted some of the common ones that athletes will come up with. Self-confidence or self-efficacy, we might call that belief in our ability to kind of achieve our best in a particular environment or context, feeling comfortable in our environment, mental toughness. So that's essentially this idea of being able to kind of perform at our best despite any challenges, pressures, stresses we encounter, linked to that idea of resilience. A lot of people will talk about as well, that's a common attribute, right? That capacity to remain positive even when we face challenges and adversity. Other ones, motivation, we've talked about. So yeah, a number of the kind of common ones you've highlighted as well. And we might link to that. Some people might say a capacity to kind of control their emotions. People might say dealing with fear, again, which is kind of variations on this emotional control theme. I'm mentioning all these terms now because spoiler alert, we'll be kind of deep diving into these as we go on in later episodes. As I say, this is why this particular podcast, this particular session is a really great way just to lay that foundation. But essentially what we want from here, John, we want a nice full list of attributes. And I think you said kind of from the previous time you did this, you found this, and I'm sure you've got probably a list kind of available already, which you've got. And maybe we can post that example if you feel comfortable, of course, John, on our Insta, on our social media.
We'll pop our examples out on our social media. I'm happy with that.
Cool. Now for this particular PDF, I've talked about the 12 attributes you feel are most important. Again, completely at your discretion. All I'd say is when it comes to developing long-term habits, goals, achievements, obviously we spread ourselves too thinly. We're not going to have a central focus. So what we might want to do, I'd probably say choosing, this is kind of less what maybe literature specifically says, but more from kind of that kind of like tacit experience of speaking with athletes who do it. Maybe have 3 priority areas we're going to work on for now. You might choose that to be, and we'll talk about this in a minute, the 3 which we recognize as the 3 most important attributes in general, or we might go 1 for physical, 1 for BJJ specific, and 1 for psychological. That's quite a nice way to do it.
So focus on enhancing kind of 3 of them at a time, you think?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And this is an absolute disaster. Oh, here we go. Oh, goodness me. Right. Well, for those of you watching live, this is I'm beyond embarrassed. For some reason, the table I have here has gone ski whip. So what I'm going to do, I promise for anyone who wants to download this particular table, I will of course ensure that it actually resets. But for now, John, we'll go down to here. Is it going to work for me?
We probably should have PDF'd it down, shouldn't we, before we started?
Yeah, but I wanted to kind of write live. I wanted to give the audience a really immersive experience, almost like a 3D or 4D film, John.
Yeah, I like
that. Next time, I'll just won't make the effort. What's the point? So there you go, John. So then we've got this nice little table here, okay? And again, this is at people's discretion how they do this. This is my personal preference. So some things to consider, kind of more recent research. I say recent, there's a paper now from kind of 10 years ago by a guy called Dan Gucciardi and another psychologist, surname Gordon, apologies, Dr. Gordon, if you're listening.
Gordo.
My Gordo, your first name escapes me, but they, for example, they were just looking at performance profiling specifically from a psychological perspective. And in terms of kind of how we're going to quantify things are slightly different. But I'm digressing, John. I am going on El Tangento. I digest. So we'll go back to it. So let's say we've got those attributes, right? Let's go for that idea. We're going to pick 12 for now, okay? So we start writing it in here. So fire off some of the attributes we talked about.
Interval fitness, Dan.
Okay, interval fitness. Okay.
Explosive power, Dan.
Explosive power, John. Another, please, John.
Muscular endurance. These are all the physical ones.
Yeah. Okay. Consonant, please, Carol.
Mobility.
Mobility. Okay. We won't do this for each one, but you're getting the idea. Let's just to mix it up a bit. Let's just say you've said confidence. Okay. Now, in honesty, and this would be beauty if I send this to you as a Word doc as opposed to a PDF, you could probably actually have a nice definition. Remember, kind of specificity is really important. So we could go for the traditional and kind of academic definitions of what confidence means, but remember, personal construct, it's all about you and how you define it. So what does confidence mean to you, John? An athlete who's fully confident, what do they look like?
Dan. So I guess it's a self-belief
Mm.
that you can do what you want to do in competition, that you'll be able to bring about the outcome that you want in competition, or even not, because I guess in competition, you're not necessarily 100% in control of that, but a self-belief that you've got the skills to be competing at that level.
Okay,
Maybe.
cool, perfect. Yeah, I like it.
Right.
I like it a lot, John. Dare I say I love it. So we do that. So I'd always say defining your attributes really, really useful and really important, right? Because confidence, again, we ask people in our gym, what does confidence mean to you? We'll get a number of different answers, which is absolutely fine. So if you want to extend on that, what we can sometimes do, and this is where this kind of Gucciardi and Gordon research, they said more recently, they kind of spoke about this. We define the construct, then we almost have a contrast construct. So we'd say, right, a high, what does kind of high confidence, or what we sometimes call self-efficacy, what does that look like? You define that. So, that idea, that strong belief in our ability to, get the best out of ourselves in competition and train and say, or maximize our skills when it counts. So what would the opposite of that look like? You might even define that as strange as it sounds. So what does low confidence look like?
So yeah, that's quite good actually, because
Mm.
I tell you what, for me, the confidence is to be able to go to competition feeling like I belong there. I'm good enough to be here at this level. And I have definitely turned up to competitions where training hasn't been going very well. It's been too intimate and I haven't been getting to the sessions. And I feel like I haven't trained hard enough to actually belong to be there. So then as soon as any adversity hits, you're like, well, I haven't been training hard enough. Of course he's going to pass my guard. And then you have a really poor performance, because straight away going into that competition, you don't feel like you've done enough to kind of earn your spot in that competition kind of thing.
Yeah, the self-fulfilling prophecy is a real thing, and it is, and we can't underestimate, countless research in areas such as kind of confidence and development, what an direct impact it does have on performance, or kind of, how it impacts kind of these mediating or moderating variables, which lead us to, when we're more confident, for example, we're more motivated, we're more focused, we perhaps feel less anxious. So as a result of that, we're able to get the best out of ourselves. So all those things, right? So that counter maybe definition of low self-confidence might be, I don't belong here. Okay?
I don't belong here. Yeah, exactly.
So the reason I'm saying this is because we try and quantify things on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay. So again, how we do this is at your personal preference. Now, a lot of people like to do 10 represents for world-class athlete. Okay, so for world-class BJJ competitor, 1 represents the absolute novice. I've heard people call it beginner. I've heard people just use the term expert and useless to kind of do the range from
I like that.
from 1 to 10. Okay, that's completely up to you. We've got a nice little belt system in BJJ. Maybe you want to break it down into kind of low-level white belt, high-level white belt. Be creative with it. This is what it's about. It's got to be personal to you. But we'll go for the classic 1 to 10. And so when we're looking at this, the reason I did that confidence, okay, so what does 1 actually mean? So 1's maybe that beginner, but we might also think, am I more representative or more towards that definition of I don't belong here at the moment? Or am I more in that category of I belong here, I'm ready to go, etc.
So you could do one of these at each belt then, Dan. You could say, where am I at now?
Yeah.
At brand new blue belt level. How do I see myself as a 10 to get to purple belt level?
Absolutely, man. And that's all I'm doing. All we're doing is creating this way to make it feel a safe personal trust. And this is the beauty. It's a bit of a creative process, everyone. You can give it a go. Play with it.
Play with us.
Play with us. That's a surefire way to get cancelled before the first episode. But anyway, yes. So we do that. So let's go for it, John. So
all right.
Quantifying it now. Let's go for for kind of thinking of your definition, using that scale from kind of useless to world expert. What are you currently going to rate your confidence level at on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm coming off a win in the competition, Dan. So I'm feeling a little bit higher maybe than. Let's go. So if I'm probably going to use 10 as black belt level then.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
Black belt.
That's a great way
6.
Okay, cool. And where would you ideally like to be? Let's say, and again, well, what does that mean? Does that mean in a year, in 5 years' time? Yeah. I mean, so maybe if we were to do this again, and again, this is at your discretion to extent, do we want to be looking at this again in 6 months as a short-term goal? Maybe it's to get to what we feel we need to get to the next belt level. Maybe we're looking more long-term at the end of this competitive year. So if I were to ask you this time next year, just having a kind of solid time frame in mind. So let's say this time in a year's time, I ask you this, John, where do you want to be ideally? It may well be a 10 in terms of your confidence.
Yeah, a 10. I'd like to feel like I'm ready to take the step up to black belt, let's say. Sure. So yeah, 10.
Absolutely. 10. And yeah, that's a really great way. And all I'd say, and I'm not suggesting for a second it's not the case, man, but yeah, we have to feel that sense of it feeling realistic and achievable if we fully apply ourselves. Does that feel? And I have no doubt at all, John. It does.
That's a tight one.
But also remember, the reason, again, I've done this as a Word document. This is a live document. This is something we're going to repeatedly be looking at over the course, perhaps even every 6 to 8 weeks, we're updating our profiles. We're seeing what has come. It's not just this one-off thing we look at and then it's a stack. It's like, okay, so the difference there, John?
4 down.
2 plus 3, 1 plus 3 is 4. Minus 1 plus 3.
Minus 1, that's through Christmas.
So, every day, man. Okay. Anyway, I digress. Right now, here comes this idea now of the
small trees.
Support. Yeah, absolutely.
So you set me off now.
A big shout out for those of you who, this is anyway. Big Shack. There was that song a couple of years ago, but me.
You remember it. You remember
it. Anyway, so importance, John. Again, scale of 1 to 10. Okay, now. People can do this. I've seen people do this in different ways. Some people might do it in a kind of chronological order. So they might have 10 attributes. We go, okay, I'm going to rank this from 10 to 1 in order of importance. Some people just say, they could all be 10s, for example. So if it's maximal importance for you to get to that world-class at black belt level, how important is it? From absolutely essential, maybe being a 10 to...
an 8 maybe, Dan, I reckon.
Okay.
It's really important, but I think,
Absolutely. So sometimes we can go... like I say, there's no one's going to bust through your door, John, and take you away.
Why'd you say it was an 8?
Yeah, well, how dare you? Some people kind of, when they're struggling, 8.5, sometimes maybe taking a step back and actually, again, thinking about this at an individual level.
9.5, Dan.
Yeah, well, why not? Why not, John?
Oh, you maverick.
John, this is your party, John. I'm just the DJ. This is So anyway, we go like that. So then we've got another bit of quick maths to do. So it's the difference times importance now. So I believe that's 32, John, unless I'm mistaken. That's where I embarrass myself.
Yep.
32. Okay. So that's our score. So very quickly, because we're conscious of keeping the ball rolling. Let's say for mobility, you've said your mobility is 4 at the moment. You realise it's ideally in a year's time you'd like to be at an 8. Okay. Again, we've got a difference of 4, but you realise for your BJJ, it's actually like a 10 out of 10 importance. If you're not mobile, you're not going to get the best there. So that becomes 40. So you start seeing we're getting these scores that are coming up, right? The scores on the doors, George, and then and they go, and then from there, what happens is that difference times importance score actually allows us to determine what our priority areas are. Okay. Beautiful. So then from there, we can go, okay, what are we going to do with this information? How are we going to bring it forward? Now, as an extension of idea, again, an additional extra for some people. Excuse me while my document's gone all strange, but you can see here this kind of performance profile wheel. Okay, it's really messed up. This is awful. This is
so it should look like a dartboard, shouldn't it?
Should look like a dartboard. There we go. That's a bit better. Pardon me, ladies and gents. This kind of dartboard we can see here with ideally this little bit that's gone all ski with here is actually in the middle here. So essentially, it's broken up into its kind of constituents. There we go. Yeah, look at John's bit, not my screen here, but it's broken up into its constituents. But it's broken up into its constituent parts. Essentially, 10 rings, right? The middle one representing 1, the outer one representing 10. We've got that outer circle where we can write the attributes in, and then we just can do just a lovely little colouring exercise. Okay, one colour to represent where we are now, and then one colour where we ideally want to be. Again, some people are obviously quite visual learners, like that kind of visual reinforcement to check their progression. We can print this off multiple times, maybe, as I say, go back to it every couple of months. Are we able to colour in a square? Do we maybe feel we're progressing? I believe we were cut off there, John, of a pivotal, crucial moment. So
we were, but we are back.
We're back. Okay, so
and look, the dartboard is perfect.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The dartboard is now perfect-ish. But it's a free resource. Don't complain about it. Come on. So there we go. Hypothetically, we've got our 12 different attributes. There's 12 different segments. We've got 10 little segments we can color in. And as I say, some people just like that visual representation. This is something you could maybe print off. And
so the dark grey around the outside is where you write the attribute, and then you've got the 10 light grey boxes to colour
exactly.
in. Yeah.
And then you do kind of different colours for where you are now, where you want to be, and then progressively drawing in as well. Obviously, perfect. In an ideal world, we want that perfect circle, 10 out of 10. Creates a perfect wheel, a wheel in motion, John. There's no stopping it.
No stopping it.
But that goes. But again, as I say, most importantly from that previous exercise, we're identifying those priority areas, okay? Because that lays the foundation for everything we want to do, right? And ultimately that lays the foundation for our goals. And we've all got to have goals in BJJ, otherwise we lack direction. And again, it's a really important exercise in self-awareness, just coming back now and going, oh, okay, shit, this is where I think I am right now. This is where I want to be. You can get a bit of some different perspectives as well, right? We might be someone who feels, perhaps particularly with the technical aspects, that we're being overly harsh of ourselves, or maybe we're just living in cloud cuckoo land and think we're a lot more things. So maybe, get a coach, get a couple of teammates to give independent ratings without seeing this. If you want to go that route, there's no pressure or expectation, obviously, but it can be a nice way to do it. Okay, what does my coach actually think? Is there some middle ground maybe we're reaching towards as well? So just an additional idea, as I say, the most important rating is how you perceive yourself and how you're measuring yourself, but there's certainly that aspect to look at. Then the final step, John, as I say, we're gonna set some goals. Now we'll for sure we'll deep dive into kind of goal setting stuff.
Yeah, we'll do a goal setting episode. Yeah, for sure.
It's an absolute mindset. But for now, we list those 3 priority areas. Okay, so your priority areas have come out, John, as let's say mobility, confidence, and interval fitness. Okay,
definitely.
So we might go about attribute. Okay, so attribute. What are some developmental goals we might look for to enhance our confidence? Okay, obviously we've got I won't deep dive into goal set now, but we have that kind of hierarchy of outcome related goals. So confidence goal for me that will enhance my confidence is winning a UK championship. That's great, but that's really outcome focused. We don't have a great degree of controllability. So for kind of motivation, a large degree of controllability.
For me, I guess consistent training is going to give me the confidence that I've put the work in.
Yeah. Absolutely.
To kind of deserve to be there. So, and that obviously that's then a process goal that I'm in charge of. How if I consistently train.
Yeah, they say often the kind of quickest pathway to confidence is competence. So that makes a lot of sense. So it might be consistent training. Other hypotheticals, it might be things like taking additional time to watch instructionals, videos outside of training, taking time again to reflect after each session, highlight what I did well. Stuff, performance accomplishments, a really strong source of confidence. So those are just some examples. Remember, this is personal to you. How are you defining confidence? What's given you confidence in the past? And as we'll go in later episodes, I'm sure we can hopefully give you some advice in that relation as well.
Yeah.
Let's say mobility and stuff. Okay, so what are some goals? Again, we really want to try and make them process orientated. So things you've got a high level of controllability out. So it might be, I'm going to do dynamic stretching before every session, and I'm not going to leave the mats until I do at least 5 minutes of cool down stretches. Again, that's a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Short period, but something that's going to be sustainable and we know we can do. Maybe it's at home.
Yeah, so I've set myself the goal of basically some mobility training kind of every day, but an absolute minimum of 3 times a week, 15 minutes 3 times a week. Just been doing it in the evening. I've been hitting more than 3 times a week, but I've kind of set that as an achievable minimum each week.
Yeah, and that's great, and that's really important, man. Right? I would say that's a really good point to make, because we often have, particularly this time of year, needless to say, we have these goals we put in place. We think, right, okay, going to stretch every day. I'm not being pessimistic towards anyone, but life happens. Other things get in the way, really difficult. So just set yourself an attainable target for that, but one that's going to, lead to those incremental gains. And sometimes that's what it's about, right? Those small incremental gains, particularly if we're putting the new behavior next to something we're already doing. Hence why we might say, do some stretching straight after the session while I'm still at the gym. We know we're there. That becomes part of our routine, and integrate that as a habit and stuff. And then, so we do that for all the attributes, essentially, man, whether it's for physical, for psychological, for sports specific as well. And remember, when we're doing these definitions, that can relate to these different areas as well. We might even want to break down some of the attributes as well. That paper I spoke about earlier, for example, they did it with psychological stuff. They said, okay, resilience. So what does resilience, for example, look like in sports? So it might be, okay, so even after a bad performance, I'm able to extract the positives. How well do we currently do that on a level of 1 to 10? I won't dwell on defeats. How well do we do that? After every session, maybe I'll still look after my physical resilience kind of thing. I'll make sure that I'm eating healthy, getting the right nutrition, hydration, the right sleep and stuff. Again, so I'm going off on a bit of a tangent now. Those aren't the best examples by any means, but breaking it down. So, it's up to you. You might do 3 different profiles for all the different attributes. You might have a specific mental toughness performance profile. Obviously, you've got to work what's best for you and what's going to be attainable. But you see what I mean? You can really,
you can
really
break
these
further
down. As I say, the more we break it down, right, the more we're kind of getting. And the same with our physical skills. So what does actually good guard retention look like if we're doing it into our individual components? We might quantify things. We might have like specific performance related bits. You might say, okay, I'm going to count an elite guard as 95% of the time, or in 9 out of 10 of the roles I do in training, no one can pass my guard. Just a hypothetical example, but again, it's an opportunity to play with it and essentially just think about what's best for you. Yeah.
So we spoke about that in the last episode, Dan, the New Year, New Me one, about having that kind of end goal and then breaking it down into the little process steps. You gave that analogy of the stepping stones and working out, breaking it down as to how you can then get to that kind of final step. So if you haven't listened to the last episode, give that a little listen. Some fantastic info in that one.
And look, some outcome goals. I'm not for a second. They're really, really important. In fact, they say a combination of kind of short and long-term goals is really important, right, for our long-term motivation, knowing what we're striving towards, but also having those regular short-term goals and what we might refer to as things at the performance level as well. So the actual performance metrics, which show we're doing that. Like I say, be creative. Maybe do start making more detailed notes on your role. Maybe kind of every role you do, did you technically win or lose that if you're doing IBJJF rules? Again, I'm just.
I like to do that in the run up to competition. I think, kind of, you don't want to get in that mindset of every role having to be a world championship. In the run up to competition, I'm a bit more strict with myself. It's like you gave up 2 points there. Yeah, you're being lazy. Like, we're not doing this. Is comp prep. We're not giving up easy points. We're winning every role kind of thing. Yeah.
And then for things like comp prep as well, a lot of the time we might not like doing that because we realize it actually places a bit of pressure on us. And as human beings, we don't often like that feeling of pressure, particularly outside of comp. Why would we want that to put more of that? But again, that will actually kind of our physiological and psychological state, that'll actually be really helpful to try and promote those kind of competition conditions before. But again, I've got to say it again, we're going to be deep diving into all this stuff in future episodes. So that, in a nutshell, John, my friend, is the performance profile process.
I like it, Dan.
Yeah, please. Look, everyone, get in touch if you hear this and want to know more about it. Either obviously firstly message, more than happy to talk about it more in depth, perhaps over a coffee or candlelit dinner. Very lonely, so that'd be appreciated. But no, drop us an email. I'll send you the PDF and just give it a go. Remember, as I say,
djjscience@outlook.com, and we'll send you that. And if you've got any questions as well, we can answer that at the same time. I like this, Dan. It gives you. It's a nice way of measuring a nice baseline, and it gives you targets, and it kind of gives you a really good idea of what you want to focus on. And then it's kind of like, okay, well, if I can get this wheel complete, I hit the next outcome. I might hit the next outcome goal. So it's like a very processed way of trying to, kind of get to that next stage or whatever. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been shown to be a great tool for as I say, motivation, a real catalyst for kind of self-improvement. Helps us really think about more specific goals as well. It gets us to think about the demands we place upon ourselves, and ultimately, right, it creates a foundation to make us better. As I say, if we've got a clear map of where we're going to, and that's why I'm really emphasising this: break it down as much as possible, because the more specific it is, I'm sure we all know those goal setting, principles, the smart ones, etc. It's a nice little technique, John.
Yeah, I like it. So then moving on in the podcast down from here on, we're going to break down, aren't we, that technical, psychological, physical attributes, and we're going to go into techniques that we can use to try and enhance each of those. So once people have got their performance profiles, we're going to then try and go through a load of the techniques that you can use to try and enhance those areas and get them better. So we'll really break down those individual areas and kind of go quite specifically into them.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of talk about the links, right, and everything we're talking about, as mentioned, things like supplementation, how might that link to physical energy, things like kind of, visualization, how might that link to enhancing confidence or motivation. So everything's going to be linked, and I guarantee probably from what you have on your performance profile, every episode will at least in some way connect to this performance profile. So before listening to any other episodes, get it printed off, give it a go, and you'll be good to go.
Love it.
I love you. What? So,
Love you.
yeah,
We love you all.
I love you. Awesome.
Awesome. Well, I hope that's useful. As I say, pop us an email, bjjscience@outlook.com. If you want this performance profile, I think you could probably also Google it. It's on there, but get our branded one. Give us a like and a subscribe on your podcast app and on YouTube. With BJJ Science on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, BJJ Science Podcast, and on Twitter, we're BJJ Science. And also, if you've got any ideas of stuff you'd like us to cover, things that come up on your performance profile you'd really like us to look at, pop us an email or pop us a message on Instagram, and we'll try and kind of hone in on those points as well.
Yeah, I think we'd really like when we at the end, mate, to have a kind of couple of minutes to do some questions that we had via emails.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
and stuff. So please don't hesitate.
Question time. Yeah. Excellent. Well, I hope that was useful. Give that a go. I really recommend it. It's quite a nice way of getting yourself a bit of focus on what you need to do in your training. So, awesome. Thanks for that, Dan.
Thank you, John, and thank you, listeners.
Thank you, listeners. Yeah, for coming along with us, and we will see you on the next one.
Take care, guys.
See you later.
Adieu.
Adieu.